Our next presentation is Awakening to Inner Wisdom and Heavenly Messages. Rhonda and David Ings teach workshops worldwide on a process called Writing for Discovery. Rhonda Ings is completing her PhD in transpersonal psychology and writing a book about how to connect with loved ones in the heavenly realms, along with her husband, Dave Ings. Dave is an engineer, researcher, and teacher of balanced right and left brain techniques to solve problems and live a more balanced and love-filled life. Together, they use their innovative techniques to help others awaken to the inner wisdom, and we can all learn more at their website, which says it all, livingourlove.com. Dave and Rhonda, welcome.
All right.
So, hi, everybody. I'm Rhonda.
And I'm Dave.
And thank you again, Anne, for the lovely introduction. We're really honored to be here together with everyone. And we're delighted to be able to share our experiences to awakening to inner wisdom and heavenly messages. In this lifetime, my fascination has been about the connection of spirit, mind, and emotions. And I have a master's degree in clinical counseling, and I worked many years in behavioral health, working with people recovering from mood disorders and addictions. And I'm currently working on a PhD in transpersonal psychology, and my focus is on connecting to our true spiritual self as soul to receive guidance and help in our everyday life. And we are excited to share several of our key discoveries with everyone.
So in this lifetime, I've worked as an engineer, a college professor, a researcher, and as a manager. As a youth, I had out-of-body experiences, and in particular, a book called The Search for Bridie Murphy, which was about reincarnation, fascinated me. And then in college, I learned about astral projection. And that led me on a search to find safe and natural ways to expand my awareness beyond my physical body. And through these practices, my research into the spiritual nature of love began. Using these practices to expand my awareness, my most important work has been researching through my own experience and sharing it with Rhonda and those I love, the spiritual nature of love and how to live love in everyday life.
Mystics and near-death experiencers know firsthand that love is what we really are. And the experiences that Dave and I have had have given us this firsthand personal knowing that this is truth. For us, it is a fact and not a belief. And for us, the whole point of spiritually transformative experiences is to help us to awaken to the love we really are.
Rhonda and I strive to live love in our every action. We weave gradual and intentional spiritually transformative experiences into our everyday lives. This allows us to grow spiritually and grow in awareness while still keeping in harmony and in balance.
The theme of our presentation today is awakening to our inner wisdom and heavenly messages. We will share firsthand our experiences and the insights we have gained. Our experiences have shown us that the true identity of all of us is that we are sparks or atoms of the primordial love that is from higher power. Each of us is soul.
Near-death experiences give a really good insight into that primordial love and the ways we may approach it without having to die, have a near-death experience.
Yes.
Key elements of those experiences are important in our own practices. The first element of the near-death experience, commonly, nearly everyone meets an inner guide or a teacher, a presence of a being that's caring, loving. And then they move into the experience of the light and a complete immersion in profound love and a sense of deep wisdom, inner wisdom, understanding the way things work in the world. And then another part for many is to meet with those who love us. And those are our family, our friends, our teachers, guides, even pets. They are the sources of heavenly messages.
Right. Because love is what we are and what we strive to live, we named our website livingourlove.com. And our focus is on opening to that primordial love that leads to amazing inner wisdom and heavenly messages.
Again, through our personal experiences, we've come to recognize that as soul, we have senses of perception that are tuned specifically to this love-sourced wisdom and heavenly messages. Within that infinite love is infinite wisdom, and it provides the links of love between us and our loved ones and our teachers and those who care for us, our guides, our pets, right? Along the lines of which we have our heavenly messages. And based on the classes we've taught, we've are convinced everyone has these soul-based senses available, but they're rarely used. But practice can open them.
Right. And as soul, we use many bodies and each with its particular senses of perception. And sometimes these senses are forced open abruptly or without preparation. And then that can create significant challenges for a person to integrate the new knowing in their life. So ideally, we open our soul senses of perception gradually and with experience support so that we can remain in balance.
Okay. So one powerful technique that we use to open our soul senses is senses of perception is called writing for discovery. And we practice this nearly daily. I've been actually doing it for decades. And we teach it in classes and also through our website. The experience of it for me has just been extraordinary.
Our experience is that it opens our awareness to primordial love's inner wisdom and to heavenly messages from those in heaven who love us. And what we receive is appropriate to this moment. And the result is that we grow substantially while maintaining harmony and balance in our lives.
Our dream state, our out-of-body experiences, our mystical experiences, they're all real, and they can profoundly affect our lives. So the storyline of our presentation today focuses on our spiritually transformative experiences that have led us here today and what we've done to make those experiences available to us.
Mm-hmm. All of us have experiences as soul, whether we're aware of them or not. And our dream, our out-of-body and mystical experiences are all real and can profoundly affect our lives. And one of my earliest memories was when I was an infant. While in a dream, I remember gliding over this immense body of water, and the sun was glistening and the waves were going around, and I felt this sense of freedom as I flew. And the experience was something I've always remembered. And then when I was around 3 or 4, I had another flying dream. Pardon me. I flew this time, though, into our basement, and it was kind of dark, but there was some light that was kind of illuminated. And as I flew to the back of the basement, there was a mirror. And as I went past, I saw a reflection of a globe of light reflecting back. And I felt this peace and love, and I didn't know what that was. And it wasn't until much later that I recognized that that was my true self as soul.
I also had flying dreams as a child, and probably many of us who are here today have also had these experiences. For me, they were my favorites, actually. Much more fun than the daytime play. I just had such freedom and exhilaration until I would suddenly plunge straight toward the ground as if I was going to crash. And just before contact, I would wake up in bed and breathe a sigh of relief, thankful. I survived that one. But at the time, I didn't realize I was just returning to my body. As a teenager, I found myself in a very vivid, lucid dream, walking on the dusty ground of the moon and looking at small craters and larger rocks. It was really striking, and it gave me a distinct knowing that I am more than my physical body. Also, in high school, often when I was studying at home, I felt as if I were floating above my body. It was really wonderful. And actually didn't interfere with my studies, but it also confirmed that I am more than my physical body.
Traveling as soul is very common when we're young, and because our imaginations and hearts are open, we often have spiritual experiences. And for some people, these childhood spiritual adventures start a lifelong journey to awaken spiritually.
Rhonda grew up in a chaotic home, and she complained a lot.
Yep. I think one day my mom was sick of it, and she had me sit down and type on my little play typewriter 20 positive things I could find about my day or about my life. And I noticed that as I did this, my thoughts and my feelings shifted and I felt better.
So Rhonda practiced writing with gratitude. It transformed her heart, and she shifted into a spiritual consciousness. It's a really powerful tool for making a shift, and it's so easy to do. So one way of calling it is gratitude writing, and she still uses it regularly, often combined with the writing for discovery technique, to see her way through challenges that she's facing and that we face sometimes together as any couple. So the whole point of learning to live, love, or become diamonds of God's glistening light is to get polished. And so, as many of you probably recognize, close relationships are great for polishing. But regarding this gratitude writing, I'm the wonderfully grateful beneficiary of this powerful and effective writing exercise. When we practice it, when we write it, when we discover more about it and express it, especially to those whom we appreciate, it is a big part of awakening as spiritual beings. Simple, everyday, yet profoundly powerful. Dreams are also a big part of spiritual awakening. And several years ago, Dr. Raymond Moody, who's going to be speaking for our conference tomorrow morning at 11 Eastern time, he's the pioneer researcher in near-death experiences, and he discussed dreams in an article in Psychology Today several years ago, and he asked this question: could dreams be a bridge between the physical and spiritual worlds?
And I could say definitely yes. When I was 13, I was acting like, again, my issues with typical teenager who didn't appreciate my family. And then I had a life-changing experience in a dream. I was visited by a kind gentleman with round face and twinkly blue eyes, and he sat with me in my family's living room, and he stated, "You know, your family's doing everything they can to provide for you and your siblings. It might be nice to show some appreciation." And I looked at him and I said, "Who are you? Are you Peter Pan?" As he reminded me of him. And I remember going on a soul journey afterwards, and it was an experience of pure joy. This experience helped me adjust my attitude. And the core transformation for me was, again, the practice of gratitude. And as I expressed more gratitude, it opened up more love in my family. In fact, my parents rewarded me with a summer camp that year. And there I experienced a friend's dream of prophecy. So I was having a wonderful time at camp and all the activities. And then one day my friend told me that she had a dream with her grandparents and they had told her it won't be long and we'll be together. And a few years later, she left this life at only 16 when she died in a car accident. I was stunned when I learned she had passed away, but I realized that this was not truly an accident. Maybe it was her time, since she had shared her dream of prophecy with me. And yet I was missing my friend terribly. And I asked out loud, Laurie, if you can hear me, move something in the room. And just then the newspaper fell off the desk and I ran out of there scared. And that night I had a dream with her and she had said, it's not really a good idea to try to contact me this way. I said, Laurie, oh my gosh, it's you. Tell me, what's it like? And she just stood there, quiet, smiling, didn't say a word. And I repeated it, tell me, and she didn't say anything. And I knew she was holding back on purpose as I needed to do my own research. And thus I became a seeker, wanting to know what happens after life ends. And I started reading any books I could find on the subject of afterlife. And my mom brought home a copy of In My Soul, I Am Free. It's about the life and author and spiritual teacher, Paul Twitchell, and explain the purpose of life and that we can adventure as soul through the many levels of heaven. And it even included a spiritual exercise and chanting of a highly charged word, Hugh, spelled H-U, or sung like you. And when I tried it, I immediately noticed a feeling of peace. And after using this charged word, I left my body that night in a dream and floated to the moon. And I was suspended between the moon and the earth, and I was swinging back and forth, and it was so exhilarating, and I felt so free. You didn't get to do that.
I didn't get that one. I just shuffled around in the dust.
Oh,
anyway.
And after this experience, I happened to look at the back of the book, and lo and behold, there was a photo of the same gentleman I met in my dream 4 years before. It wasn't Peter Pan, but Paul Twitchell. And he had the same twinkly blue eyes and kind face and of the stranger who helped me in my dream as a child.
Well, my first heavenly message came on my 18th birthday while a surgeon was removing my tonsils. Under full anesthesia, I found myself suddenly in the company of 3 timeless sages. They wore long, dark robes, but their hoods sort of covered their faces, shadows, and I couldn't see them clearly. But I do remember one of them had a fairly long beard, not long, but it wasn't really a goatee, but it was a light color, and that struck me and stayed with me. Anyway, they put a large old book, clearly very precious to them, and highlighted a passage on that ancient parchment, which I read. And I knew at the time that it was super important. But the next thing I knew, I was waking up, squeezing my mother's hand because it hurt. My throat hurt so much. Mm-hmm. And I remembered the sages, and I remembered the book, but not what it had said. So that event set me on my lifelong quest to know the true nature of love and how to live it and how to help others know it directly for themselves. But it would be decades before I actually recognized that the charter for my life was in that passage.
Many people use spiritually charged words in meditation, contemplation, and as they go about their daily lives. And these special sounds open us to being in harmony with love and the heart of God.
Yeah. The charged words enhance our vibrations, and they open the door to greater spirituality. Each one of us is a unique being, and for each of us, there's a sound that will work well for a given moment. when you ask the divine for help to find that right sound, it will come. We'll talk more about working with the divine and asking questions in a little bit, but that's a really key element of spiritual growth, is the engagement of divine wisdom, and then using the sounds that come to us that are tuned just for us, that feel just right. A key part of the practice is to focus on something or someone you love and keep your heart open.
Mm-hmm. And when I would sing Hugh, I would put my attention oftentimes on my beloved grandmother. And then when I heard that she had passed away, I had felt a wave of grief, and I sat down and to sing Hugh to balance myself. Suddenly, I felt my grandmother's loving presence. And she was with me, and I heard her say in my thoughts, "I have something I want to give you, a pendant." And I was confused of what she meant about her gift, as this was the first time I ever heard of it. And then she repeated that she has a pendant for me. And the love was so profound, what I felt coming from her too. I immediately called my mother and told her this experience with grandma, and she said, "Oh, that's right, there is something." And then she left the phone and came back and said, "I have in my hand something that grandma had given me." She first said, though, "Are you sitting down?"
Yeah.
And then she said that grandma had given her a box that she had forgotten about. And there was a note on the box. It said, "For Rhonda, pendant." It was a diamond pendant necklace. And it was just as my grandmother had said to me inwardly. And here it is. That's the same pendant. And the real gift my grandmother gave me, though, was her loving communication with me, and that she found a way to tell me she survived her own death. And thus I knew absolutely that there is life after this life. There's life after death.
There are many ways each of us learns that there is no death, and that we are soul, that we are sparks of the divine, having an earthly experience. But even with that knowing, we have to go through the experiences of our lives, and sometimes those can get quite messy.
Yes, and I was pretty lost without the anchor of my grandmother in my life. And as they say, I started looking for love in all the wrong places. And I got involved in a relationship with somebody at work that when one day I heard in contemplation, "If you continue with this relationship, you're going to get sick." But I resisted. I'll do it my way. And yes, I got sick.
She still likes to do it her way.
Hopefully learning. But I didn't just get a little sick. I got deathly ill. I became critically ill with sepsis from a severe infection, and my body was beginning to shut down. And I asked God with my whole heart, "Please let me live so I may know what love is." And I did not go into the proverbial light, and there was no tunnel. For me, there was only a sense of peace, but I kept myself from going to the other side because I knew in my heart I was not ready to go. I wanted to live. I needed to live. I had not accomplished what I came here for, and I was very aware of it. And early in the hospital, I had heard people and young children in the hallway, and the kids were, some of them were crying. And to me, that was music to my ears because it was life. And somehow I knew that I wanted my own family and to know what love is. That night, I was floating in and out of my body, and suddenly there was a massive storm. And then, boom, a huge lightning strike rang through the halls of the whole hospital, and I could feel the vibration in my bed, and the hospital's lightning rod, I knew, had just been hit. And as I heard that sound and felt the effect of the gigantic lightning strike reverberating everywhere, I was back in my body, And that sound, that mighty crash of lightning on the building, meant something to me personally. It meant that my prayer was heard and answered, and I would live and come to know love.
So that moment was a spiritually transformative experience for Rhonda. These moments of intense spiritual awareness may be big and loud, or they may be gentle and quiet and almost imperceptible. And yet, life will never be the same. These become spiritual turning points that drive us as soul to connect with why we are alive, what we are to do with our lives, and each step helps lead us into a greater enlightenment in this lifetime, small or large.
As I came out of my near-death experience, slowly and surely I had changed. I had a greater appreciation for life, greater compassion for others, more patience. And after that night, I had a sense of my own spirituality, and it became calmer, more loving, and I surrendered to the help I needed. And after that, the road was still not clear after all the hospital stay and therapy. It took 2 months to completely heal and finally be able to go back to work. But during that time of healing, my heart was open and I knew I had changed forever.
So Rhonda's metamorphosis was a spiritual awakening that expands consciousness. One of the great benefits of Spiritual Awakenings International and its website is that it provides many well-documented accounts of these transformations. They're very inspiring, and we encourage you to look at them and if you can afford it, to donate and support their wonderful work. When we have expanded consciousness, very often we experience a greater sense of freedom. We have new perspectives on life and ourselves. We gain greater understanding of many circumstances in our lives. Typically, we become more loving, have higher ethics, and desire to be of service in one way or another. Many years before I met Rhonda, I learned a writing technique that was highly effective and practical for everyday wisdom. And it opened, I realized eventually that this technique, this practice, actually opens to the wisdom that's inherent in primordial love. So I'd been using these techniques for years and actually had taught them very successfully to engineers and scientists with remarkable results. And then Rhonda, I was delighted to discover, had also in the course of her life and professional work developed writing techniques also that are highly effective for tuning into inner wisdom. And so we were very delighted when we found this out, that we had this in common.
And when we got together, Dave encouraged me to write regularly because he was totally into this and he would be doing so every day. And with both of us using these techniques, it quickened our connection with the divine. And this writing practice continues to enhance and inform our lives every day, from the smallest details to the major challenges and opportunities. And one such challenge happened several years into our marriage.
When I married Rhonda, I became stepdad to her two cats, Shabda and Baraka. So Shabda is the gingered one, and he was very ginger colored, and he was very sweet and loving, and Baraka was happily accepted his affection. But they had both been indoor cats all their lives, and they had never been outdoors, not even on our balcony. So we lived in a third floor apartment at that time, and our front door opened to an outdoor covered stairs. But one day, while the balcony door was open, a delivery man came to bring a big package into the apartment. And we didn't realize it, but that terrified Shabda, and he bolted for safety. And the nearest door went to
balcony.
the balcony. And we did not see it, but we suspect he was running so hard when he went through the railings, he expected to find something on the other side, but instead he dropped 3 floors to the grass down below. Well, a couple of hours later, we noticed he was gone and realized what had probably happened. But thankfully, we didn't see his dead body down there. So we printed up 300 posters, and with the aids of some neighborhood children, plastered our complex. We looked in the woods, we looked all over. People were calling for him for hours, but he never showed up.
Yeah, I was beside myself and wasn't able to sleep or anything the day before. Shabda was my precious baby, and I raised him since he was a kitten. So that evening, the second day, I wrote a letter to my inner guide asking for help. And I heard, talk to Shabda because he is as close to you as your heartbeat. So I wrote, Shabda, we love you. We'd like to have you back. And if you want to be found, come closer to the apartment so we can find you. And then I heard, as I wrote, you will know something by the next day.
So at 6:30 the next morning, we got a phone call, and it was from a neighbor who lived in an adjacent building, also on the 3rd floor. She was actually walking barefoot to go down to her car. He was on the top step, and she felt his fur, just as she was about to sit down or stand down. So thankfully she didn't squash him, but she recognized him right away and called us.
And I was excited and exhilarated to have my dear Shabda back, and so grateful. And I realized that asking my inner guide for help was a catalyst, along with writing as a doorway for soul-to-soul connection. And Shabda heard me.
It was great. It was awesome. So here's another example of heavenly help.
So recently I had a health challenge, something that is fairly common, constipation, but this was starting to get really serious. So I wondered if I needed to go to urgent care. And so I picked up my laptop and I wrote a letter to my inner guide asking, what should I do? And I heard, your mother wants to talk with you. And my mom, who's no longer in the physical, obviously. And I heard, Ron, I heard her say, you need to take some milk of magnesia and drink 2 quarts of water before you go to bed. And I wondered, is milk of magnesia something that helps with this? And I looked it up on the internet, our proverbial
modern day oracle.
Right. And there it was. It helps with constipation. And I did as she suggested, and it worked. And then afterwards, I realized that if you take milk of magnesia, the abbreviation MOM, and it spells mom. And I thought that was funny. It was like her little message from the other side.
So the point of this story and each of the stories is that primordial love supports us all. There's no aspect of our lives that we cannot engage it and ask for help and get help, whether it's a big thing or a little thing. We have another story.
One more, yeah.
One more to share.
Yeah, we were thinking about adding a 4-legged pet to our family. And I had a dream about a cream-colored dog with a curly tail. And then I saw him again in my contemplation. And I mentioned that next day. And I mentioned this to Dave, and he said, well, maybe there's a dog at a shelter waiting for us. Why not look online? And I did. And there he was, a 6-month-old wire terrier mix, ready to be adopted. And I thought, and I had a big reaction. It's like, well, when am I going to have time to take care of him? So I've learned when to take an emotional reaction, take it and write about it. And I immediately sat down with my journal and I wrote a letter with feeling to my inner guide. How can I take care of my dog? There's not enough time in the day. And then I heard as I was writing mid-sentence, there is always room for more love. There's always room for more love. Those words stopped me in my tracks. I realized that it was not my own thought, but something higher. And I learned over the years to trust this inner wise consultant guidance. And so we went forth and rescued Chauncey.
Well, he actually rescued
I
us.
think so. And it was the best decision. And he's added so much love to our family, and the guidance was right. There is always room for more love.
Yeah, Chauncey's been an enormous blessing in our lives. But that line, there's always room for more love, just resonates with us almost every day. It's actually a a wonderful sort of little mini spiritual exercise just to remember that. But a key element of success with any spiritual practice, whether it's the writing for discovery or another practice that is right for you, is that you have to practice it. And with that practice, the associated senses of perception will open, and you'll gain greater understanding. You'll gain greater awareness. Your consciousness will grow. Ideally, you have well-trained guidance and good support so that you can maintain your balance while you're expanding your consciousness. The next example is about a major life decision that affected our whole family. First, just to set it up, as we open our senses of spiritual perception, whatever technique we use, very often we find insight or awareness or guidance just simply appearing spontaneously. That's one of the great benefits of using any spiritual exercise technique, that beyond the time that you actually use it, it has benefit in the course of your daily life.
So we had been married for a while, and then I heard a question one day in contemplation. What would you most regret if you don't do by the end of your life? I took that question in and reflected for a moment, and I realized it was, first off, a spiritually transformative event, and it was precisely that I wanted to have a child. But then my mind started to chew on this, and I wondered, would I be safe at my age? Is it even possible? Will I survive? Should I be planning for our retirement? And
and so a key point that I want to interject in the story is that Divine Spirit actually asks us this question all the time, but most of us don't want to hear it. But it's profoundly powerful. What would you most regret if you don't achieve it by the end of your life? We might be afraid of what it would take when we get that answer, but we also can find a way clear, as Rhonda did, by asking for help.
Yeah. And I did do that. I asked the divine for help. I asked, please show me what's in my best interest to do. And then I had a pivotal dream that helped me decide from my heart. And Divine Spirit responded, because I dreamt I was at a resort with families. It was like an amusement park resort, and the kids and everybody was playing and having fun on a log flume. And the joy and laughter was just palpable. And when I awoke, my heart was open with love, and I knew I wanted to have a family and that all would go well. And so we moved towards love and left
the fears
behind.
Yep. So we went past the naysayers and the fear and found an excellent clinic in Europe that helps older mothers. And there we conceived our son. Rhonda carried him full term and had a successful delivery. It was just spectacular. So Divine Spirit wants us to have our heart's desires fulfilled in whatever way is right for us. We just have to ask for assistance, accept the help, and act on the guidance.
After we had our son, my new life was wonderful and full of challenges. And it was especially difficult not having any family nearby to help. And so one day, while I was trying to play with my 3-month-old son and cooking a meal and trying to do all this before Dave came home from work, all of a sudden, my son was crying in that heart-wrenching, pulling kind of way. And I was so overwhelmed, trying to do several things at once. And I lifted my hands up to heavens and I implored, why can't I just do one thing at a time? I just want to do one thing. Suddenly, I heard my grandmother's laughter. And she said, my dear, welcome to motherhood. Of course, her comment pointed out that this is all normal. Multitasking, that just goes with the territory.
But a key point here is that it had been 18 years since she had heard her inner voice so clearly.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And she helped me from beyond. And after that, she gave me suggestions on how to help my son when trying to change his diaper and he's squirming and crying. And she would suggest singing to him and other things that she suggested.
Oh, she was a great cook.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not Rhonda's forte up to until she started having more conversations with her grandmother. And grandma has given her tips and suggestions for recipes, and it's just like, oh my God, they're so good.
It's
Out
really
of the
good.
blue. It's just
right.
It's wonderful.
And so somehow I had tapped into that spiritual awareness from the other side, and I was so grateful.
Right, right. So her regular practice for her of her mantra, the hue, and the writing for discovery opened up clear lines of communication with loved ones on the other side. This can happen for anybody. Mm-hmm. Part of it is, do you have the intention? And then can you relax and just be open to what might be coming? So this after-death communication, she has found in her experience to be accurate and reliable. Yes. Over and over again.
It is. And I had applied for a new job and everything. So this was also another experience. So I was trying for this new position. I thought everything was going well and that they were going to offer me a position, and then I wasn't. And I was devastated and I began to doubt myself. And then I remembered to ask inwardly for help. And the next morning, I felt my grandmother's loving presence coming in our room. And with it came the scent of cooking onions, her go-to recipe starter. And she announced, today's the day you start your new job. What? I said, what? I didn't get that job. And I wonder what she meant. And why didn't she know that I didn't get the job? So I asked inwardly for guidance and understanding. Then, while driving, I had a brilliant synchronistic event occur, which I call a waking dream. While driving my car, I saw 3 identical trucks in the row that had the same message. On the back of each truck was a message, be your own boss, great to work with, or work great to work for. And this felt like a message from the divine. Then within a day of seeing that waking dream message, I inwardly heard a title of a book, and I knew I was being encouraged to write about how we can be helped by our family, guides, angels, loved ones in heaven.
And she's been working on that book for several years. We have a very good editor, and it's very, very exciting. Yes. So Rhonda's experience is an example of the principle, if you ask, you will receive. But there's a key factor at play here. It's called the law of non-interference. And that is that the divine and its agents can only enter into our lives and support us if we ask for their help and then are willing to receive it. So Rhonda asked for steps, help for the steps to take next. And now she's writing that book and also teaching workshops that have spun out of it and support it.
We both are.
Yeah,
teaching.
well,
Yeah.
we're both teaching the workshops.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I lost the job opportunity. I asked for help. And that idea for the book came within days. And since then, I have had hundreds of amazing conversations with my family in heaven. And a lot of them were corroborated with my mom before she had passed. And what I have learned about death, after death communication, is a key part of the PhD program that I am completing.
Yeah, and it's very exciting because Dr. Moody's talk tomorrow morning is on his most recent book,
Proof of Life After Life.
And the core aspect of that is the shared death experience, which we had actually had with both
my mom and my dad.
Her mom and her dad. And that is an aspect of this ability for souls to communicate directly with each other. The shared death experience is one aspect of it. The after-death communication is another aspect of it. Mm-hmm. It's amazing the lines of love that we share enable communication directly without even necessarily using words, but just knowing directly. Mm-hmm. So in the course of our presentation today, we've shown how 8 simple practices have led us on a journey of profound spiritual transformation while maintaining balance in our lives. At one point, we shared some of our stories with a person, and she said, "Oh, well, that's spirituality light. You didn't have a near-death experience.
I didn't go into the light.
You didn't have your lives upended and then have to figure your way out of it." And actually, we're kind of grateful for that because it has been profound. We look back at where we are and from where we were, and it's wonderful. And the core of it all is that divine love has given us these gifts and supported us. We, for our part, have reached out to it and asked for it. You were saying something earlier today about asking the divine to know love.
Mm-hmm. And the divine will answer whenever there's a request to know what love is. It will come that is just right for each one of us. Answers will come, the right people, pets, circumstances, conditions, everything. Right. Once we open our heart to want to know what love is.
Yeah. One of the things we've found is that every sincere request will be answered, but sometimes we need to be prepared before we can hear that answer. And so it may not appear right away. And it might take years even to be answered. But we have seen every one of our requests be answered. It's an extraordinary framework. So here are the 8 keys that we want to share with you as we wrap up. Especially these are for staying open to spiritually transformative experiences of whatever nature, major ones or the ones that just weave into everyday life and if we're not paying attention can pass us by. So the first one is be open to adventuring or as soul or having out-of-body experiences. Practicing a mantra helps.
Next is practicing gratitude, writing down what you appreciate in your life and expressing it has ripple effects in our lives. And I've noticed that sometimes I have to do extreme gratitude in the moment. So when something's really difficult and
or someone
like we were driving one day and we were having a tiff and we were getting frustrated and I heard, express gratitude. And so through my gritted teeth, I was expressing gratitude, but I noticed it shifted things in that moment.
At one point in my life, a fellow I worked for was queuing up to fire me. He gave me a letter showing stating all these things that he thought I had done wrong. And when I asked inwardly that night what was going on, the inner master showed me, it's all your fault. All that criticism you've been holding in your heart toward him, you're creating this. So I said, what do I do? And the response was, express gratitude for everything you can and say it to him. And I nearly choked. It's like, what? But I found that as I did that, and I appreciated the things that he did, our relationship blossomed. And to my astonishment, just 7 months later, when I had my annual review, I could not believe the positive framework that how much contributions I was making.
Wow.
He'd come around to my desk. It was just extraordinary. And the only turn of events was that I stopped inwardly criticizing him and I outwardly expressed appreciation.
Cool. And so harmonizing our heart with the heart of the Creator helps by chanting a word or a mantra that increases your vibration. And like Dave mentioned earlier, you can ask the divine for what's the right sound or word or mantra that's right for you.
Yep.
And then
we do that one too.
And sure. And then when we ask for and listen for, we can be open to help from our guides, teachers, and those who love us inwardly and outwardly. They may show up in our dreams even. And we suggest.
Oh, you wanted to finish something on that one? Go ahead.
And we suggest making a note of these insights and conversations in your journal so that they can be read over and again. And I keep a dream journal, and I have found that reviewing the dream journal really helps, because I noticed recently to look in a dream journal, and 12 years ago, I had the dream where I was asked or suggested to write a book about how our guides and heavenly helpers aid us in our daily life, everyday life.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
Another key framework is to consider your dreams as bridges to the spiritual world. You can intentionally go to bed and say, tonight I want to dream with maybe a loved one, or I want to experience this in the inner planes. And a simple statement, and then imagining letting it go into the hands of the divine or a spiritual teacher or guide, higher power, God, whatever works for you, opens up inner doors. And have a pen or paper available, write it down, and then review it periodically. Each time you do, more opens up. And answers will come. Yep. And so we, again, find that writing helps to discover inner wisdom, and writing for discovery is one of those techniques that we use. One of the beautiful things about writing down your spiritual experiences as you're having them, as an observer, is that later you can go back and read them. And while you're writing them down, right, the words might not even make any sense. It may seem illogical. And in fact, the ideal elements of writing for discovery is to just pose a question or ask something, write continuously for 5, 10, 20 minutes, suspend logic, spelling, and grammar, and see what comes out. That's why we call it discovery. When you go into it with a sense of exploration and curiosity, that inner relaxation allows the divine to share things with us that are just amazing, and allows for inner connections to occur that are also just really amazing. But when you write it down, then you can go back to it later. And when we go back, we always find each time there's more and there's more. Those words are portals to the state of consciousness that originally created them. It's very powerful. And another key is to pay attention to the synchronicities in life, because it's like a roadmap guiding, like you get off a little bit here and it's kind of guiding you back this way. And those coincidences or synchronicities help then guide us. Right. And finally, live love in all your intentions and your actions. If there's some way that, for instance, one of the things do you want to, how you start your day? Want to share that?
I declare myself a vehicle for the divine in all that I think, feel, do, be, and say.
It's a wonderful way to start the day. And that intention then permeates everything else. In the writings of Paul Twitchell, he called that first cause.
Yeah,
So we want to thank you very much for letting us share with you part of our journey of love. And we sincerely wish best for each of you in your ongoing journey of spiritual transformation.
And working with the divine is in a balanced way. We can have intentional, spiritually transformative experiences. At livingourlove.com, we teach methods to help people awaken to their true nature, connect with their inner wisdom and heavenly messages, and apply it into their everyday lives. And we will have a special program available for the viewers of this presentation on our website.
Yeah. And one of the most important parts of this presentation is to thank Yvonne Cason and the board of directors of Spiritual Awakenings International for creating this community and their outstanding work. It is critical for many people, a lifeline for many around the world, and it's a great service. We encourage you, if you can, to donate to keep these programs and other ones, this program and other ones like it, available and free for people all over the world who need this community and the support that it offers. Thank you very much.
I'm grateful to be part of this with you all. And
yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, that was beautiful. I can't tell you how much I appreciated that presentation. I think that you've hit so many beautiful points, so many highlights, but I wanted to make a little announcement that will be a surprise to you, that your website has had so many hits that it is overloaded and not working. So many people have asked, would you please get your website back up? Livingourlove.com is not currently functioning. I know you've had some really big workshops and it's probably had a little overload. So
dear.
Well, we'll that going. No.
Right after this call, we'll connect with our our technical support, and it may take a little bit, but please keep checking back as soon as we can get that sorted out. Thank you for letting us know. Oh my goodness.
We've had a lot of questions, and one of them that I really enjoy, and I've got the same question, is that you talked about having a flying dream as a child, and Yvonne says in this statement, I've had a lot of flying dreams too. I'm not sure this is from a lot when I was a child. This person says, I haven't had one for many years. What are your thoughts on why people do not necessarily have as many flying dreams when they're adults? Do you have any opinion on that?
Go ahead. Do you have a thought?
I'm not, I can't say for sure. I can say from my own experience, that is true. I haven't had, because it shifts from, so there's different planes of existence. And sometimes we are the feeling of movement, and sometimes we're just there. So in the dream, I find myself in waking up in a location. And it's not necessarily, however, I did have recently. So in a dream, I went to a hospital like I used to work at, and I was bringing somebody water. And then after that, I left that hospital, maybe on, I don't know, astral plane, we'll say. And I was floating, and it was getting really dark. So I started to sing Hue. And as I sang Hue, a light came out of my third eye. And I could then see, and then I could hear other people, excuse me, singing you behind me,
Mhm.
and it started to get brighter. And so that was a purpose to that
Yeah.
experience for me. It wasn't just to have my senses acted upon,
So
but to have
So I
and
think
experience it.
the key point is that as we grow, different kinds of experiences are appropriate for us. The childhood dreams, in one sense, are easy because we're full of imagination. We don't have a great many cares that weigh us down, and stresses to worry about. So one of the dynamics is the childlike nature that spiritual masters refer to. And it's quite a challenge to exercise in today's framework. But regardless of whether we have that kind of dream or not, we are still soul and we still have access to that divine wisdom. And if we ask for it, and especially if we want to have flying dreams, we could actually go back and ask for them and and discover what happens. Actually, now that I want to do that, that was just so great. I've had a few flying dreams since then, but I love them.
Yes.
I'll ask for more. I like it.
So
Thank
certainly
you.
we can ask for more.
Excellent. Okay, so you talked about having a specific vibration or frequency that fits your mantra, I believe you were talking about at any one time. And this person asks, is that why singing bowls are said to choose us?
I wonder. It sounds like it, right?
Well, actually, this gets to something very interesting. It has become clear to me that there is a fundamental axiom in our normal science, the fundamental axiom is, in our cultures, the Western world in particular, is that everything is physical and everything comes out of physical experience. But another one has played strongly in my attention, and that is that awareness exists always and is absolutely universal. And that means in the things around us, there is awareness. Quantum physicists are dancing around theories that may touch on this, but in my own experience, I've actually listened to things and had a sense like this glass of water. You could take and listen to anything, and if you open your spaces and sense, you'll pick up a consciousness associated with it. Right.
Mhm.
And so to me, the idea that a singing bowl chooses the
Why
person
not?
makes complete sense.
Mhm.
And when it's the right vibration, you'll feel it.
Mhm.
It just fills you. And there's an affinity there of consciousness, of awareness. That's my experience of it anyway. Thanks.
Right.
Really experimenting, which one feels
Yeah,
right,
yeah, experiment.
Well, you received another question about children. Someone texted this to me. Do you feel we are all open as children and somehow we begin to forget while others don't forget and they stay open?
Yeah.
Yes.
I believe that too.
I believe that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's there was I've forgotten the guy, a French physician, Verny, I believe it was, wrote a book called Life Before Life. And a part of the framework that he talks about in that is that as we come into this lifetime from the previous, we're wide open. And even while the baby is in the mother's womb, the spaces the mother is holding and the things she listens to and the language she speaks actually already touch that soul. So we come in wide open. And yeah, some people are able to keep it open. It's part of their mission in this life. For others of us, it closes down. But we can find methods to open them up again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thanks. Good question. I hope that answered. Did we?
Yeah, great. That was good. You also talked about the technique that you've been using for years, and I'm familiar with your workshop, so I know you're actually teaching many techniques, but
That's
Dave
true.
mentioned one, and Rhonda, you did specifically. And you've named your workshop and this group of techniques, Writing for Discovery. But we were never told specifically what it entails. This question is asking,
Well,
I
that's
think
a
it might
good
be more for
question.
the
Thank
workshop.
you.
But
Thank
they
you.
ask, is it merely writing in an intentional way and asking the divine or spirit for assistance? Or is that just part of it?
Those are elements of it,
Yeah.
because intention is critically important. Intention determines what we can actually experience. The writing for discovery keeps the everyday mind busy recording. We put it in the position of it simply being like a scribe, taking down the information that's coming when we actually just write in an open way. So the core elements of the technique, and thanks for asking, Anne, the core elements of the technique, and then there's this whole system built around it. But if you have this and use it, you can get a lot. And it comes down to this. Invite the presence of the divine, ask for its assistance, or put yourself into a space that you feel love and presence, and relaxed. Then choose something, or like Rhonda said, if there's one thing that you could write down, would be what
is in my best spiritual interest to know, do, or be right now.
Right now. Just write that down,
Mhm.
and then keep writing, suspending logic, spelling, and grammar. So what this does is keeps your left brain and everyday mind busy with a job. And then that creative soul part of you, which we might call right brain, and we prefer to even think of something much greater, taps into insights. And a lot of times especially when you start, it's a combination of thoughts that you write down because you're gaining practice, and then things will pop into your attention. But the key elements of it are write continuously. Do not stop. Keep your hand moving, even if it's doodles across the page, or writing, I need to write because this is what I'm supposed to do. And suspend logic, spelling, and grammar, and be open to discovery. And then you could either set a timer or just to have a sense, okay, I've written enough for today. And then read it again. And very often you'll discover as you reread it, oh my gosh. Now in our classes, we find that it takes practice for people to do this, and ideally support, so that they can build up the confidence that they actually succeed.
People have said that they were thinking of one person that had passed, and they were writing, and all of a sudden somebody else shows up.
Yeah.
And then one lady had asked her deceased son, what do you do? And all of a sudden she saw her dog that had passed bound right into the
scene, right?
And she realized, oh my God, this is real. I did not make this up.
Yeah, it happened so suddenly in her attention that she knew it wasn't wishful writing or wishful thinking. It just appeared. And that's the key point. Discovery.
Right.
The excitement, the wonder of discovery is at the heart of this.
Thank you. Thanks for addressing Writing for Discovery. It roused a lot of interest in the questions. Another person says, how is it different from automatic writing? And there's another piece there. I know you want to address that. And how do you make sure the responses are from the light? Do you say a prayer? What do you do for protection? And then where does the God wisdom come in versus working with a deceased person, listening to your grandma who survived her death? I thought that was a brilliant line. Or how do you know? What are those judgment calls? So did you get all those questions together, and can you address them?
So quickly, the first part, if you could say that again.
Oh, of course. How does it differ from automatic writing? And how can you make sure that the questions are from the light?
Okay. So the automatic writing.
So automatic writing generally is you're letting some other being come in and write for you. We're not,
through you.
or through
Use
you.
your body.
Yeah, we're
Use
not-
your hand.
we're
Right.
not doing that. We're having a conversation, a
Right.
dialogue.
We are
No.
always in control, all right? And we're listening
Mhm.
to either beings that we want to communicate or opening to the divine wisdom, right? So that's a distinct difference. Then how do you know where it's coming from? Well, that in large measure depends on you, all right? That's why we emphasize so strongly to keep your attention on the primordial love, whatever
On
your
the
path
divine.
is, the divine, higher power, God, whatever term or concept you use, because that's where true wisdom comes from. Now, you could try using this technique for negative or personal gain, but that's
Life will
kind
show
of
us
like,
better.
yeah, really, that's kind of like holding a stick of dynamite and lighting it and watching the fuse go down. So that core intention is how you work with it. Now, when you first start, lots of things will come through. Thoughts from the mind, emotions, all kinds of various stuff. But you'll also have experiences where you recognize a timbre, a knack, a feeling where that is specific to actually having something pop through.
Right.
It feels different. Or when you're actually in communication with someone, it's distinctly different
You can,
from something that your mind is creating.
your, family member's voice, or that,
How they
that-
feel,
yeah,
their presence, right? Right.
But also when we keep our attention on the highest and the highest principle of love, divine love,
That's it.
that's what will help. Because with love comes wisdom. The
Right.
two are connected, love and
Right.
wisdom.
Love is the most important thing to bring into the home of our heart.
Mhm.
Everything else comes with it. Wisdom, health,
Everything.
everything else. Love is number one. And that's how we avoid pitfalls, but rather open to blessings and gifts and discovery. We've discovered that whatever we put our attention on is what we draw to ourselves.
Mhm.
So let's keep it on the highest.
Yes. And thanks. Yes.
Did that answer all the questions?
I wonder.
Yes, that was great. There's a lot of other questions. There's a lot of thank yous for a wonderful presentation. Everyone's really appreciated it. But there's a couple here that I think really need an answer. Briefly, they've asked, Rhonda, could you and Dave repeat the title of your upcoming book? We know it's not published yet, but we'd love to know the title. And they can't get to your website to look for it. I know it's there, but they want to know the name now.
Yes.
Okay, we'll tell you the name. It's called Help from the Other Side, How to Receive Messages from Heaven Every Day.
Thank you. I'm
Help
putting
from
it
the
in the
other side.
chat.
Should I repeat it again?
Yes.
Help from the Other Side, How to Receive Messages from Heaven Every Day. Yes.
Right, we got that in the chat, everybody. And someone said they ask you about chanting Hugh, and where does that chant actually come from? Could you explain that a little more?
The hue is a sound that has been used in many different cultures for millennia, actually. It's a sound that was within the Egyptian mystery schools. We took a trip to Ghana as guest speakers one time and met with their local
Spiritual leaders.
And in the course of the prayer that they were doing to open the meeting, the hue was there. There's a
website. It's
yeah,
called hughAncientChants.com, I believe.
Yeah.
Or
And that,
.org.
yeah, that will give more.
Put that in
background,
the.
but it is not particular to any path. It shows up around the world, and so when people are wanting to connect with the divine, it is those who are really looking and experimenting and trying to find things that work over the course of millennia keep finding the sound as a constant element.
So anyone of any faith can do this because it opens our heart to the heart of God, and
That's
just
right.
sing Hugh and see what happens if you like to try it.
Thank you both so much. You'll love looking at the chat. The comments were absolutely amazing. Everyone really appreciated you, and I did too. Thank you for opening your hearts.